Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Anthony and Todd Show. I'm your host, Trevor.
And I'm Vincent.
And I hope you cowpokes are ready for another edition of the album Corral, because we're going way far back in this one. We're going back to the Old West.
We're going back to the New York groove. All these artists are New York based.
That's a blatant lie. Today, Vincent and I have a lot of stuff to cover. And so, kind of like last time, we're just going to talk about a bunch of stuff, and you're going to sit there and listen to it. And then later, I'm going to put timestamps so you can skip to your favorite part.
And if you don't sit there and listen to it, we're going to tell your mom on you. So you better...
You're going to get in big trouble.
We're going to tell Joe Biden on you.
You're going to have a curfew.
We're going to tell Mike DeWine to put a curfew on your ass. And if you don't, he's going to put a hit on you.
Nice. Only Ohio fans know. All right, our first project of the day is the new Aesop Rock album, Spirit World Field Guide. Or if I was Aesop Rock, I would say Spirit World Field Guide.
I don't think he would say it like that.
Yeah, he hangs on his consonants for a long time. This album came out last Friday at the time of this recording, and it's like an hour long, and it's a lot of tracks. But personally, I think it's a pretty good entry in the Aesop Rock discography.
Yeah, this whole entire premise of this album is Aesop Rock showing you a guide to the next dimension. At least that's how the really interesting intro starts us off, setting it almost like you feel like you're like reading the book in Gravity Falls, like the guide that has all the like the mythical materials in it, and
this is where Stranger Things takes place.
Yeah, over the course of this like hour plus project, Aesop Rock is showcasing his absolute amazing word vocabulary and terrific flow, as well as a lot of the synthetic and strange production that he's over top on this. I think while the production isn't as varying as the Impossible Kid, I think it actually takes a little bit more risks than the production Tobacco used on the last Malibu Ken album.
That's also not to mention that Aesop Rock produced 100% of this album. He produced all the tracks himself, which I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think this album may be a little long in scope, but overall this is a completely stellar and otherworldly album. There's some funny moments like Dog at the Door where he thinks his dog is barking at the door, so he thinks there's a trap outside waiting for him, that something is just going to whisk him away of all the possibilities, of all the possible things that is going to attack him once he leaves his front door. There's excellent singles like Gates, which I didn't really care for as a single, but now I think it makes a lot more sense in this concept, and it is this first step in this otherworldly dimension that you're taking. I just really enjoy this album. Aesop Rock finds a way to normalize and canonize a lot of the weird stuff he normally talks about, but this time it's because he's talking about another realm, another dimension. It's not just random absurdist material this time. It actually has a concrete world to it, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, I also like the other single a lot more in the context of the album, Pizza Alley. I didn't really care for that as a single as well, but I find it a lot more interesting and endearing here. Also, the whole Stranger Things bit that I did a little bit ago, that's not a complete joke. The Stranger Things soundtrack is like very synth-heavy and mysterious, and a lot of the production here is also the same way. Look no further than the track Crystal Swords, very like flowing synth keys going on in the background while Aesop Rock sticks to his pretty normal flow over the top of that. Besides the length, that's maybe one thing that I could knock Aesop Rock on here is I feel like his flow doesn't really change a whole lot across projects. And that's why I like the Impossible Kid so much, because I felt like it was he switched things up a lot more. But on here, I think he's gone back to pretty much his tried and true method. That's not to say what he's put out here is any less impressive. It's just kind of like I wish he would switch it up every once in a while.
Moving forward with Chris Stapleton starting over. One of our favorite acts in country at the moment, Chris Stapleton, put out a new record which is kind of doing everything I hoped he would do at this point. I felt like some of the last Chris Stapleton projects, the From the Room series and the Traveler, I felt like while his voice and his performance and the charisma he would bring to a track were all excellent and all what I was searching for in country today, I felt like some of the song racking and some of the ways the albums were structured felt a little weak and felt like he was stepping more into a popular light or keeping one step. It felt like he was keeping one foot into more popular country. It was not to say he's making anything like bro country or anything like that, but I felt like there was still a ton more room for him to mature and grow as an artist. And Chris Stapleton on this new project, he showcases himself in a more finite light. I feel like all the tracks on here, while some being really minimal, in production, they all really, really work. I think his voice carries this entire project. I think he has a ton of great songwriting on here. I really enjoyed the moment Maggie's song talking about his dog, how much joy the dog brought into his life, and how good of a dog it was. I also like moments like You Should Probably Leave, where he brings where this warm richness of his voice is emasculated by the melancholy of this almost broken relationship. His voice, while reminding me of a lot of these people who are on these like reality singing shows, I think what separates him from them is he has a very solid songwriting background that helps him over the course of his entire project. And I think this new direction for Chris Stapleton, stuff that he started on from the Room series, is finally coming to a conclusion on this, and it's spectacular to see. You got amazing tracks over the cross of the thing. Starting over, Devil Always Makes Me Think Twice, Arkansas, Hillbilly Blood, Maggie's Song, Whiskey Sunrise, Old Friends, and You Should Probably Leave. There's so many terrific songs on here, and this is a completely terrific and stellar album. Next, we have 2 Chainz, So Help Me God, an album I wasn't really gonna talk about this week, but I listened to it last night, and I was kind of surprised. I don't have too much to say about this, but this is way better. This is better than Rap or Go to the League. I feel like 2 Chainz stays to, he knows his constraints more of this. He doesn't take time to be more conscious than he did on this last one, with no backbone to even really having a point to what he's talking about. I feel like this is definitely better than his label album that he dropped earlier this year. That was absolutely horrendous. I feel like 2 Chainz showcases more of the charisma and the energy that has brought him to the dance on this, and I think the majority of the features on this actually support the album. Nothing seems really too out of the place. While there's some lame performances here or there, some dumb lines, I don't feel like anything on this album really distracts from anything else. I think it's a pretty stable and consistent project. I wouldn't say it's a great album. I definitely would not even say it's a good album, but it's definitely a consistent release from 2 Chainz, and that's all I really wanted to see at this point.
Yeah, moving on next to an album from a friend of the show, but before he was a friend of the show, Slap Serif, the Bellingham, Washington producer, was just some guy that we found on Reddit who made Plunder Phonics music. We're talking about Slap Serif's voice inside the music, his most recent full-length project here. Slap, we reached out to him, and he so graciously did an interview with us where we learned so much more about this album. But even if we hadn't done the interview, honestly, this is one of the best Plunder Phonics albums that I've heard in a long while. This definitely takes a lot of inspiration from old Avalanches, Since I Left You, as well as a lot of the older Boards of Canada projects. This project just flows from cover to cover so seamlessly and flawlessly. It's so smooth like butter. Some great tracks like It Never Entered My Mind and Blue Train, which Vincent actually did a visualizer for, starring Fruit by the Foot. But Slap's vocals, even on Blue Train, I just find to be very emotional. And yeah, they are like amateur vocals, but I find that to be so endearing. I just love that he put himself out there to do this. Straight Shooter and Voice Inside the Music both have solid features from some of the local rap talent in Washington as well. The last couple tracks on here, like I Need Water, Waves and Drip, The Rain Song, This Old Machine, and Can't Say Goodbye. I just find to be such a great run of tracks. I just can't praise this album enough, honestly.
Yeah, this album's absolutely incredible. The opening, Record Enthusiast, is this really almost nostalgic intro of having a sample of a voice telling you how to calibrate your speakers for the turntable you just bought, transferring over these track after track of these lovely transitions and amazing sample work, tons of different styles of plunderphonics on this thing. There's shades of things that made the Avalanche just great, but also shades of what made Jay Dilla great and shades of what make Madlib so great. I think he truly has amazing fundamentals when it comes to sampling and production, and I think the features on here, on the tracks that we do get features, Straight Shooter with Chainz and Voice Inside the Music with Rhythm, I think are just two excellent tracks. The build-up on Straight Shooter just seems like this constant escalation, and it's so incredible. Voice Inside this music is so flowing and catchy and unforgettable. I love the Rhetorician's voice. He feels so confident and collective over the beat Slayer provides. I think Slap's vocals, as Trevor mentions, fit so naturally to the point where I was even surprised it was him to begin with, because it seemed so mature and stylistic to the track, and it fits so well. This is an incredible album that you should not miss this year, and make sure you definitely check it out. Moving forward, Jeff Rosenstock with No Dream. You're not allowed to dream ever again. If you do, Jeff Rosenstock's going to tell your mom on you. Just like we're going to tell your mom on you if you don't finish this entire episode.
Jeff Rosenstock is the guy that wakes you up in the middle of the night to go pee when you're having a dream. He can sense that kind of thing.
Jeff Rosenstock, one of the most curious voices in indie music today. He started in 2015 with his album We Cool after being the front man to bomb the music industry. He has put out stellar record after stellar record, in my opinion. I know a lot of people didn't really care for the album post, but me and Trevor actually adored it. And
that was very good.
I think while that is his most slow in terms of comparisons to other projects, more slower, I think is a better word for it. More slower of a project. I think this is a way more faster project in comparison to all the other previous movements. It's hyped up, it's energetic, it's the most pop punky his music's been to date. Not to say his music hasn't always been pop punk. I think Jeff's voice is completely charismatic on this thing. I think the tracks still show this like beautiful melancholy and this immatureness that is almost a blessing, while Jeff is stuck in this in-between phase of almost being a kid and an adult still. I think it works really well. I think he has a new fresh take where he doesn't really feel like an adult, but he still has all this ambition and scope like a kid, which really works. Not to say that Jeff is immature. He definitely has a ton of amazing and political points on this album, but I just think the energy and the charisma he brings to it is almost childlike.
Yeah, I have to agree. Every track on here feels, I feel like it's bite-sized enough to where it's pretty easily digestible. Also, the pop-punk elements, I feel like, don't turn away a lot of not as hardcore punk fans. But still, every track feels like a huge slap in the face over and over and over throughout this record, and in the best way possible. Yeah. Each track feels like getting hit by a truck in the best way possible.
Literally, intro No Time is honestly how it feels to be hit by a train. Just out of the blue. Because he just hits you. He literally just hit you with the hardest track, only 54 seconds long at the very beginning, just surprises you, and it's absolutely incredible. Some other moments, I really enjoy State Line, Airbnb, but Air is censored because he doesn't want to get...
Don't say that.
He doesn't want to get sued by Airbnb. The Beauty of Breathing, Old Crap, Leaving in the Sun, Fame. There's like ton of good moments. I think in comparison to some other records, this isn't my favorite, but I think it's still has a ton of experimentation and progression that Jeff is showcasing off. I think I still prefer Post more, and I know it's an uncommon opinion, but I think what Jeff is doing on here is so exciting and so worthwhile that whatever he does in the future, I hope he continues to reinvent himself yet again.
Yeah, I think in a way, Jeff is still like feeling a lot of the emotions from the 2016 presidential election. That's obviously like what Post was about. But here, I feel like we're getting towards the end of the term and like what's going to happen next, especially like at the time of when this was released. But it's so much more frantic and so much more nervous and anxious than Post ever was.
Definitely has a big 2020 energy to it.
Yes, it does. But also on the topic of Jeff being more lighthearted, check out the Craig of the Creek soundtrack. That's another. It's very fun. There's no way that you would ever know that this was by the same person if you didn't recognize the voice.
Yeah. Speaking of Cartoon Network, I'm going to bring this out. This wasn't on the notes, but the new Blasting Company EP, which is the leftovers from the Over the Garden Wall soundtrack. It's called like Sketches of the Unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to talk about this, but it's really good. You should listen
Let's
to it.
talk about it.
I don't have anything to say. It's just good, fun, almost like lo-fi. I don't want to call it lo-fi, but like
No, it's just good folk music. It's like pseudo folk music.
Yeah.
They made up all this stuff. The Blasting Company is incredibly talented. The Over the Garden Wall soundtrack is absolutely incredible. It's really not that long of a listen, even though it seems very intimidating. Their track Candy from earlier this year, I find to be so beautiful. Honestly, spoiler alert, one of my favorite tracks of the year. And Sketches of the Unknown is so much fun. Me and my brother had a row. What a great little tune.
At first I thought you were going to talk about you and your brother Troy, but no, you did not have a row. But
it's a relatable track because it could happen.
But you, instead of you and your brother having a row, you just drank milk on his Twitch stream.
Yes, I did.
You hydrated with milk.
Yes, I did.
Next album we're going to talk about is Backxwash with God Has Nothing to Do with This. Leave him out of it. Leave him out of it. I always want to add, please leave him out of it, because
that would be too nice.
It would be too nice. Backxwash out of, I believe, Montreal. Hopefully, I'm not wrong on that. Dropped this record out of the blue. Heard nothing about her before this, and she dropped this and completely stopped a lot of people in their tracks. It's a very, I don't know. I don't like to say witchcraft, but that's kind of the vibe I get from it.
Yeah.
It's dark, it's brooding. It has a bit of a metal and hardcore influence, style hip hop, which is really nice. There are some amazing tracks on this thing, like God Has Nothing to do with this, leave them out of it, with the amazing Black Sabbath sample to start everything off. Ozzy Osbourne on loop with his weird growl, screech noise. I think it's awesome. You get some other amazing moments, like the frantically catchy Black Magic. You have Into the Void. Redemption, I think, is also really great. There's just like a ton of great brooding and electric, two things that are completely different, but brooding and electric moments on here, which I think works out. And it's also really nice to hear a trans voice in hip hop. That's always like a nice thing to hear, because there isn't enough of that. And when we do get to hear it, we don't get enough of it. And it's nice to hear it on this album, and it won the Mercury Prize, whatever the Canadian one is.
The Canadian Mercury Prize,
which one that is. It won it, and I'm really glad, because it didn't seem like it was gonna win it.
No, this was kind of a dark horse in the contest as well, because like it's not on Spotify. I don't think it's on other streaming services.
It's on Bandcamp.
Yeah, it's on Bandcamp. That's where you can pick it up, and it's for free, so you really have no excuse to not go listen to it.
Moving forward, we got Run the Jewels. With Run the Jewels, actually no, I actually messed up. It's RTJ4. It's not Run the Jewels 4.
What the heck?
They switched it up on us. I think a reasoning why they might have switched it up. My prediction is that the first 3 Run the Jewels are called Run the Jewels 1, 2, and 3, and then the next 3 are RTJ 4, 5, and 6.
That's what I was thinking as well.
Run the Jewels, Killer Mike LP. Been collaborating since, I believe, 2011.
Yep. Yeah.
After a chance encounter with one of the Adult Swim's showrunners, I forget his name, something Laszlo, I believe. Actually, no, that's completely
It's
wrong.
Bob Odenkirk.
Bob Odenkirk, definitely. Tim Heidecker. LP produced the entirety of Killer Mike's rap music, and then Killer Mike featured on LP's Cancer for Cure. This is their fourth outing as a duo, and surprisingly, this is a tie for one of their most intense projects yet. This is another album with big 2020 energy, but I think every Run the Jewels album has big 2020 energy, always on the verge of apocalypse and restraint. Run the Jewels 2 is commonly perceived as their best album for being as bombastic and bouncy and intense as it was, but my favorite's personally 3, just for the well-rounded scope and also kind of the chilling factor on a lot of those tracks. This project's pretty similar to 2, but it's almost if they like made a poppier version of 2. Not to say that this album is a pop album by any means. Run the Jewels is completely, undoubtedly themselves across this thing, but you will get more of these huger bangers like on Ooh La La with Greg Nice and DJ Premiers. There's some more interesting features like 2 Chainz and Pharrell Williams on this thing, and Josh Homme and Mavis Staples on the same track.
You forgot Zach De La Rocha.
He was on the
Rage
last.
Against the Machine.
He was on the last couple.
Whatever. Also, E.T. is on here.
Oh yeah, the Goonies are also on here too. Run the Jewels really don't change all that much on here, which isn't a bad thing. Like, I think they're still undoubtedly themselves, but over the course of this entire thing, I think they are still completely potent and everything they say. They still mix it up a bit, but in the end, the true tried-tested formula of the completely political Killer Mike and the completely brutal LP combined together to be just a outstanding duo, and that formula is always going to be a part of their music. And I think on this, they just take a little bit risk here and there, but they keep the formula to the self, because what is there to change? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that was kind of the mantra for the first 3 albums, and when they kind of, I get not threatened to break up, but talked about breaking up and doing their own thing. I don't know. I got kind of worried. I think a lot of people were kind of worried that they weren't going to come back together, but I think that's what made RTJ4 such a treat. There was that threat of not being together anymore, and it's just honestly what the world needed for this year. They hit the emotions of this year right on the head. The unbridled anger and anxiety that a lot of people are feeling across the world and across the U.S. in this time, and they just channeled it into their music and made it the perfect soundtrack for the year. Like you mentioned, there are some like poppy cuts on here, like Ooh La La, with this really annoying but still fun hook. I hate it, but I also really like it at the same time. It gets stuck in my head. To something like Walking in the Snow or Yankee and the Brave, which are just really fun tracks. But then we get to more intense tracks and more like serious tracks, as serious as you could get with Run the Jewels, I suppose, with tracks like A Few Words for the Firing Squad. I just find that to be such a great ending moment. They just hit it right on the head and summed up everybody's experiences so well.
Moving forward, we have Freddie Gibbs in The Alchemist with Alfredo. They take you to an Italian restaurant, and they just give you a bunch of that white sauce.
No noodles, just the sauce.
This was announced like a couple days before it came out, and I really wasn't expecting a whole lot from it, but I was kind of nervous because The Alchemist dropped that album with Conway earlier this year, and that was very underwhelming. So I was hoping something better from this, and I think what we're getting on this is just a continuation of the top tier Freddie that we've gotten on Pinata and Bandana, just transpired over more smoother beats. I think this thing, while it doesn't, I think, develop as much as Bandana, I think there's something almost great about the low risk on this thing. I think it adds more energy to some tracks, like Something to Rap About, Babies and Fools, Scotty Beam, God It's Perfect. This album is very chill and relax, but I also think that also complements Freddie. I think when a moment where Freddie Gibbs didn't need to put out this stellar project, he hits us with one of his most impressive projects to date.
Yeah, I guess I shared those sentiments, but on another hand, not to be overly critical of Freddie Gibbs because he might hear this and then come after me on Twitter. But I am kind of getting a little oversaturated of Freddie Gibbs. Um, I feel like Bandana was such an incredible project from last year. I mean, a lot of thought put into it. Obviously, this they had to make a great sequel to Pinata. And you're right, like there was really no expectation for him to release this. But I feel like ever since Bandana came out, I've just been seeing so much of Freddie Gibbs on every single project that comes out. He's a feature. He's always releasing some new single or something out here. That Alfredo seemed kind of underwhelming to me personally.
Yeah, I like it. I think while it's not as good as Bandana, I think it definitely has its own charm because Bandana also had those amazing beat switches. It also had the complete charisma production wise of Madlib that Alchemist, while being a talented producer, he has his own quirks that make him special, whereas Madlib has things
Yes.
that make him. And also the risk that I think Madlib takes on this. This is kind of the tried and true formula for the Alchemist and what makes his instrumental so special of tracks that I've liked that he's produced for West Side Gun or Action Bronson, like tracks I've enjoyed in the past that he's produced. I think he brings that same energy to here. But the only difference being a different style of MC over the top of it. I think the key point of this project, the peak of this, is Something to Rap About, where Freddie Gibbs contemplates his life and talks about all the problems he's had in it, and maybe God set this up as a plan to actually give him something to talk about on his songs. And then Tyler, Creator, completely reflects on essentially his post Igor life and how happy he is at the current moment. I think it's a nice reflection for Tyler. It's a really nice reflection and kind of, I don't know, moment of destiny for Freddie Gibbs, and I think that track's really, really special. But I think also we had some incredible performances across the thing from Rick Ross, Benny Butcher, Conway. Like everything blends together really nicely on this thing for me. On this 10-track, 35-minute album, I think it just works really well as a composition. Forward, we got Oro Swimming Hour with Pteradactyl.
Yeah, Oro Swimming Hour is another friend of the show, friends of the show. We also interviewed this duo a little earlier in this year, and Oro Swimming Hour, I just think, is such a British creation. I don't know any other way to say this.
We talked about this during the interview. I understand where you're going for, but I don't think it's not like they're like Mr. Bean or something.
Yeah, whatever they were talking about. They're like, oh, you've never seen the show, Mr. Biggie and his flying magic carpet or whatever.
Something trolley. It was something trolley,
Yeah,
right?
of course it was something trolley. It was probably Big Ben's trolley or something.
Trevor stopped his beef with British people just for that review alone. And now he's back onto hating British people, but also Australians.
I'm not hating on British people.
But this album, I think we mentioned it during the interview we did with them, but it's a complete journey in a sense. I feel like it's kind of this mythical adventure.
Yes, this is a very like daydreamy kind of album. Yeah, it's very floaty. It's very carefree, and this I think it really goes hand in hand with the way that Oro Swimming Hour creates their music. I mean, check out the interview for more information and better stories than we can sum up. But honestly, the guys just said that they just make music like almost as a kid would make music, like a child's relationship to music, and it just if it sounds good, it sounds good. You know what I mean? Like they just are making music for the fun of making music, and however it feels to make it or sounds to make it, that's how they're going to do it. And literally look no further than The opening full length track on here, Jim Jam Jum, is so carefree and so floaty and happy. But when you look any like deeper into it, it doesn't mean anything.
Then you have Cold Tangerina, which is literally just about an orange juice contest.
Yeah, there is no like meaning behind these songs. The lyrics don't mean anything, and it's not bad. It's so nice to hear songs that like are just silly and make believe because it just makes you feel good.
Yeah, and it's just so fun, naturalistic. There's definitely a comparison to Sandy Alex G, or actually he's just Alex G now. I'm sorry for adding Sandy,
Sorry, Sandy
adding the
Cheeks.
SpongeBob character to your name.
Alex G Cheeks.
But there's just so many mind-numbing hooks on here, just so many explorative, imagined realms that you explore on here that are absolutely incredible. The interludes are so fantastic in the way that these like phone conversations or Skype calls are laid out across this thing. It feels like you're truly like traveling through these weird, uncertain areas, which is pretty nice. Terrific moments are on this album, such as Crocodile. I really enjoy Cold Tangerina, Jim Jam Jump. Bruise is also a really excellent moment. Milk Toast. There's just a ton of great moments across this thing. I think this is just a stellar lo-fi project that is so imaginative and creative, and I think it kind of operates on or what they described on kind of what their goal was. This is kind of seems like the best of it so far, and I'm really excited to see what they do in the future if they ever do anything in the future.
Yeah, let's move on to some of our rapid fire stuff here as we hatch this up.
These last five ones I'm going to go through pretty quickly. First, we got Anna von Hausswolff with All Thoughts Fly, and that's Toughts instead of
Oh, good.
Tots. Because not all thoughts fly, but like the ideas. The ideas fly, but physical thoughts, they do not.
They cannot fly.
This is a instrumental organ album, which I was really interested to see because at the time when Anna von Hausswolff put out her last album, Dead Magic, I wasn't too big of a fan on it. Like there was a ton of hype online for it that I saw, but I just didn't relate to it, I guess, at the time. But this new album, this instrumental organ album, which I think she recorded at like a nearby church, is absolutely incredible instrumentally. I think just the production and the focus on these huge soundtrack score-like moments, I think is incredible. I think she just brings a ton of character and creativity to her performance across this entire thing. There's no vocals. It's just slowly instrumental, which is completely nice. This album got me to appreciate more her last album, Dead Magic. Listening back to that, I appreciate it a lot more. My main complaint is I think this album feels a bit long. All Thoughts Fly just seems a bit long and kind of bloated, but I think when you get to the peaks of this album, these peak ear-ringing moments, I think it's absolutely phenomenal at what it's doing, and I would like to see more style production on future projects from her, because I think her organ playing skills are absolutely phenomenal. Moving past that, the Mountain Goats with Getting Into Knives. Mountain Goats dropped an album last year I wasn't super into as time went on. I enjoyed it a bit at first, but after a while I think it was kind of bloated and not really consistent to any idea. They dropped a lo-fi EP earlier this year, Songs for Pierre Chuvin, which I thought was fine. It had some nice moments. Didn't really feel all that important, but it didn't really need to be because it was out of Blue Lo-Fi project. But this new studio album, not just a lo-fi mix, is more getting into territory where Goths and Beat the Champ were, not conceptually related to a whole entire thing, but more getting to some more interesting storytelling and some more interesting introspective moments from John Darnell. I think it's a little bit too long, and I think maybe a connection would help, a central theme would help with these albums, because I feel like a lot of these, there's just too many. I'm jumping these gaps that just don't really need to be there narratively. Not to say there isn't any great tracks. I love Pictures of My Dress and As Many Candles as Possible. Getting to Knives is an excellent trap. The Rat Queen is absolutely fun. Get Famous is really good. So like when this album's good, it's amazing, but what it misses is very, very underwhelming. I think just more consistency. There's a good album in here, but I think it needs to be toned down and bundled up better. I think Mountain Goats still have room to grow in order to get back to the two albums I enjoy from them. Their two recent albums that I enjoy from them the most, Beat the Champ and Goths. Moving past that, Matmos with the Consuming Flame, open exercises in group form. Matmos, production duo, put out an album I absolutely loved last year, Plastic Anniversary, an album that only sampled the sounds of plastic and the various forms they come in. And it was such a great use thematically and physically of the sounds of plastic. The Consuming Flame, I think, has 99 artists all send in a portion and the Matmos compiled together. This album's nearly like 3 hours long. It's a big boy. I think we really get into peak territory around the end of 1, going into 2. I think 2 is the best album. But there's some interesting moments. There's a clipping feature on Circle of Swords, which is pretty nice. The cocktail party, How Glad I Am, I think it's just this weird sample-based moment of entering a party. I just find it very absurd and strange. There's a lot to this album, and I commend it on the experimentation and the risk taken. But I also think I never want to listen to this ever again. I think it's a good album, but I never want to listen to the 3 hours. I didn't listen to this all in one sitting either. I listened to multiple sittings. I gave each sitting its own designated time, and over 3 days I listened to it, and I think it's incredible. I think they are able to, production wise, do so much with just anything they're given. But next album, can we take it back a bit? Something a little bit more digestible for the simple people like me. Creatively they're amazing, but this is just too big of a beast for me personally. But for some people, that's the thing that makes it the most impressive, is that it's this big of a behemoth and you have to conquer it. But for me, it's too much. Moving next is 21 Savage and Metro Boomin, Savage Mode 2. 21 Savage and Metro Boomin have been doing some creative things over the last couple of years. Metro Boomin put the album out, Not All Heroes Wear Capes, 2 years ago, which at the time I really enjoyed, and I still do. Just some of those tracks I think are absolutely contagious and catchy and fun, and some of the best of trap. There's some really creative moments. He puts some artists in some really unique quarters that I wasn't expecting. Like, he makes Gunna sound good, and that was completely mind-blowing to me, that was even a possible thing you could do at the time. 21 Savage put Greater I Am Than I Was at the tail end of 2018, which was another surprising moment, because 21 Savage seemingly managed to grab everything that made him so good and add some more conscious and ideas onto it, and kind of blend together everything into one tightly knitted project. And I was really excited for this, because this sounded like it actually, as both artists were maturing, especially 21 Savage, I thought this had a chance to be really, really good. And overall, I find it way better than the first Savage Mode. Don't get me wrong, absolutely phenomenal when it compares to the first Savage Mode. 21 Savage has grown by leaps and bounds, and the production definitely is more consistent than the first project. But this is just, it's mediocre in my opinion. I really wanted to like this thing. I personally just don't care for it all that much. I don't think it's bad by any means. I just feel like there's just, these two have collaborated in so many better forms than this. take case in point, all the 21 Savage tracks on Not All Heroes Wear Capes. I just think there isn't really any moments to stand out from me. There's a weird Drake feature on this.
Yeah, the Drake feature was really uncomfortable when he said he was the slow, what is he, the pull-out king? No, that's from Portlandia. What is it? The slow stroke king.
Does that mean he just masturbates very slowly?
Yes.
But
Because he didn't win the Canadian Mercury Prize. Yeah, I think that this album was just incredibly disappointing. I went into it and really wanting to like it. I'd heard some really great things from it, but every track just felt like a huge drag. Even if it was only like a 2-minute track, it felt like it was about 10 minutes every single time. And you're right, like 21 Savage has really grown as an artist. He's put out some really, really great stuff between Savage Mode 1 and 2. Yet it still feels like a huge regression from the other things that he had been putting out, from solo projects to features. I don't understand how that happened or why it happened, I guess. But I was just really disappointed by this.
yeah. And then the final project we're going to talk about today, Safari Al, or S.Al. Safari Al Fortnite.
This is the guy from Impractical Jokers.
Safari Al Fortnites at the Scallops Hotel. Safari Al plays Fortnite at the Scallops Hotel. There's actually a full title. Let me see if I can find it. It's
like the first orange tree was planted in my room, I think.
Wow, you actually got it. First
Yeah,
orange tree
yeah.
has been planted in my room. Production on this is done by Scallops Hotel, a.k.a. Rap Ferreira, a.k.a. Milo. And
FKA Milo.
this is pretty similar in some forms to the last Scallops Hotel project. I think this is a little bit more polished, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. But I think Safari Out, he showcased on that last Ruby Yacht compilation that he was really capable as a MC, and I think on this he brings together a bunch of catchy performances, some just fun little moments. This thing isn't that long. I think the production really fits him. Just this simple lo-fi hip-hop just really works really well with him. There's some amazing moments that get stuck in my head, like Just a Matter of Grin and Habits and My Secret. I think this thing is just a fun little project that's not getting enough shine as it is. It's not pushing any boundaries by any means. I think there's definitely more that both Rory and Safari Al can do in terms of music, but I think this is just a nice little compilation of just odds and ends that works out really well.
Yeah, definitely take the risk and listen to it. It's not a long project. It's very easily digestible at just under 30 minutes. And like you mentioned, there are so many great moments on here, especially some that you didn't mention. World Speak, one of the first tracks I heard by him, as well as Something's from the Lips. I think that Safari Al is just an excellent lyricist. I think that he fits right in with that Ruby Yacht crowd. Yet on the 37 Gems Ruby Yacht label compilation that they put out from last year, he doesn't get lost in the mix. Safari Al stood as one of the standout members, and honestly, I want to see what else he can create. I hope he continues to work with Rap Ferreira. I hope that he continues to make music and put out projects that are as solid and polished as this one. I just think he's a really fun voice out right now in hip hop who's really not getting the attention that he should.
Yeah. And we're going to be leaving it at that. Until next time, guys, I've been Vincent. He's been Trevor. If you want to follow the show, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Anthony and Todd. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/The Anthony and Todd Show. You can find us on Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Podcasts by searching The Anthony and Todd Show in your favorite podcast browser. And if you want to support us monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/The Anthony and Todd Show. Until next time, guys, I'm Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see ya, boyos.
Bye, everybody.